relationships are critical. They're mirrors back to ourselves. And if something's misaligned, we're going to feel it on the deepest levels internally. And that's why it's so painful. Because anything that's happening out there is actually happening within you. It's the pain within you because it's a relationship with yourself that's being reflected to you. So exploring that as a way forward is going to be how I believe we can really reorientate ourselves in relationship and reconnect to the truth of ourselves. If you've tried every healing method out there and still finding yourself stuck in the same patterns, then you're exactly where you need to be. I'm Allura Halliwell, and after my own profound out-of-body experience left me completely disorientated in my human existence, I discovered something that changed everything. Welcome to the Consciousness Method, where we go beyond surface level fixes to the core mechanisms that actually run your reality. These aren't just concepts to think about. They're the practical tools that will shift your entire experience of being human. This isn't about becoming something new. These masterclasses invite remembrance about who you've always been beneath all the conditioning and wounding. It's about reclaiming the power you gave away and creating a life that actually reflects your authentic self. This is the Consciousness Method. Your transformation starts now. So welcome everybody to the Relationship Rewire Masterclass. I'm really excited to take this opportunity to be with you all tonight because for me, the space of relationships has been the space where I've had the most evolutionary growth. It's the space where I've witnessed the most challenge as well. And it's not an easy space to navigate in isolation because it holds so many challenges in the consciousness, because we have this space of being unconscious in a lot of our relationships. So being able to access the consciousness to get more information, to shift and change and challenge relationships that are stuck, it can be very difficult to do that in isolation. And we can kind of feel like we're on a treadmill of trying ways of being, trying to show up differently in the relationship, getting frustrated when whatever we do doesn't seem to equate to a real shift in the reality. So for me, I've been wanting to really explore the construct of relationships on a deeper energetic level, on a level where we understand what patterning we're perpetuating on an energetic level that's showing up in the material level. So this experience today is going to be about touching in on that space. And for some of you, that will be familiar because you've worked with me before, and for others, that will feel very new and a little bit different. So if it feels like I'm speaking a slightly different language, it's because I'm just tuning into, I suppose, the consciousness that is unfolding for us. So my journey with relationships, 5 years ago, I was in what I would now term a very emotionally draining, very emotionally destabilizing relationship with my partner, and a very anxiety-provoking relationship with my 3 children, and a very disconnected relationship with my family. And amongst all that, I was sitting in a space of very deep disconnection to myself. And from that space and from my evolution and my witnessing of reality, I've come to see that the majority of those relationships were actually things that were laid in my relationship patterning to myself. And once I could witness how I'd been designing the separation in myself and projecting that on relationships outside of me, I began to get more masterful in how I showed up in relationships and how I could connect with myself and with those around me in really much more deep, meaningful, whole ways. And understanding that kind of design has been what has shifted everything for me. And I now can say I have a very devoted partner that co-creates with me, have 3 very stable, loving children that are flourishing, and I have a very connected relationship with my family and my friends. And there's no differentiation between who I am in all those relationships, because as part of my evolution, I'm committed to being authentic and my whole self in all of those spaces. So if there's some stickiness, that's when I know that I need to do this deeper relationship work. So my invitation for you all tonight is to take an opportunity to share in some of this evolutionary space where we see relationships not as threatening, difficult, challenging experiences, but an opportunity for your own growth. And through that, I'm going to invite you to maybe soften a little for this experience and maybe just receive from a space of openness and curiosity. So what I'm going to offer you here is not the Bible of how you do relationships. It's an offering for you to sink into and expand your consciousness with. So as we begin, I'm just going to invite you all just to close your eyes for a few moments and just take a couple of slower, deeper breaths into your body. So as you're closing your eyes, you're turning awareness inwards, which means you're bringing your sensory acuity and attention into what is within your skin, what is within your being, what is alive within your body. And as we bring that awareness inwards, we're opening up our inner vision. So I'm just going to invite you to just drop your vision into your body and drop it all the way down into your heart space. Your mind is going to begin to run a dialogue here about this experience potentially, but just allow it to do that while we just go a little bit deeper behind the scenes. So we're going to drop right down into our heart, and we're just going to take a long, slow breath into the heart space. And as you breathe in and you open and expand that space with your energy and awareness, I just want you to feel what is alive in there for you in this moment. What is actually alive in your heart, and what does it want to express? Allow it a moment just to speak to you. And as you go a layer deeper into your heart, I'm just going to invite you to feel in with your breath and your sense and your awareness and consciousness. What is it your heart's been holding on to, particularly in relationships, that has made it feel pain or fear or separation? And just see if you can open your heart space a little more to reveal to you what it needs to express. And now I'm just going to invite you to breathe into your heart a little bit deeper and dive a little further in and open to what is alive at the core of your heart. Can you just come into awareness and consciousness that your heart has a very innate intelligence and it needs to communicate with you? So allow it just to share its resonance of what it's been holding on to. And as you breathe in and you expand in, I invite you just to feel if there's any pain. Just allow the pain presence. Just allow its voice. And if you drop into that pain a little more fully, can you feel that it opens a connection with you? It's opening a deeper access into your truth. So just honor your heart's design. Honor how it guides you. Honor the awareness it wants to bring you. And may it guide you through this experience. And now I'm going to just invite you to bring to consciousness a relationship for you that feels very challenging. Something that has felt overwhelming, like it's on repeat and you can't find a way out. Or something that you've suppressed and avoided and pushed away from you. A relationship that's held an energetic weight for you. And we're just going to gently invite that space to be the space of exploration for the next little while. So consciously connecting in with the space of the relationship, the space between you and that person that has felt both painful and challenging. And allow that space just to be and felt and seen. And the intention that the consciousness we bring tonight may open that space and allow you to feel more connection and less separation to yourself through this exploration. So taking one more final breath in, just let go as you exhale. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So I think what's really important to begin with is that even though these relationships stand out as very threatening, upsetting, or overwhelming patterns, I want us to go a little bit deeper to know that this particular relationship you're going to be working with tonight is part of a wider design for you. A lot of work that is in the field of relationships right now focuses very specifically on that particular relationship to try and shift it. But for my work, what I really like to do is to witness the patterns of relating, more so than the specifics of the relationship. Because those patterns of relating are something I call fractal patterns. And those patterns are, I would describe them as the unconscious design mechanisms of all of the relationships that create separation for you. So the way we can witness these fractals is by understanding that you experience a level of pain in this relationship that I would say is very similar to other pain you have felt in other relationships. And these relationships that have this similar quality of pain, from your parents through to your partners, through to your children, they're all fractals. They're all the essence of the same pattern for you. And what's beautiful about that when we recognize that is that particular relationship, when you work deeply on that level with that relationship, there's a fractal pattern that you're shifting through all relationships. So they're one in the same. Everything is contained within the whole, and the whole is contained in the one. So as you explore this work and you focus in on one particular relationship, the patterning of that relationship is going to reveal across space and time all the relationships that were challenging for you in that space. And at the very core of this relationship that's challenging for you, I'd like to offer that there's a very deep mechanism at play in all painful relationships. And the mechanism at play is one of separation. These unconscious design patterns that keep us looping in the same reality with different characters, but the same pain. They all have that one essence in common, that you feel an immense sense of separation. And not only does that separation really reverberate through that relationship and all others that have felt the same, when you're in that relationship, you feel separate from yourself. You feel unconscious. You feel triggered. You feel like you can't really control your reactions. And this is core of separation that plays out in these relationship patterns on this plane, this human dimension. And why it's important to witness these particular relationships as the core of separation is because it allows you a sense of depersonalization. Every human here, every human on the planet is participating in relationships that cultivate separation from that particular person and separation from self. So I suppose the deeper question is, why do we participate in these patterns of separation? What is it within us that keep us drawn into these loops and these patterns within relationship? And there's a couple of elements to that, but one of the strongest ones is this deep sense of survival, that we need to keep safe and we need to keep maintaining these external relationships to try to create a sense of safety and survival within ourselves. And this sense of safety and survival really comes down to a very primal sense that something outside of us is separate from us and it can hurt us. And as we witness that patterning, we begin to layer programs of perception onto that experience. So from your very first expression of separation, most likely from a family member, you began to lay on a program and a belief of perception around why that particular experience happened to you. And from that point, you realize that to survive this reality, you needed to be hypervigilant to this pattern reoccurring in your experience. The irony is, because we're in a holographic reality where we're creating our reality to experience it, the more we witness the separation of us from them and subsequently the lack of safety in that experience, the more we perpetuate it. So we are literally projecting our program of separation onto relationships. And then we're creating a hypervigilance of survival within those relationships. So it's important to witness that these relationships that feel most painful have been where you've been in survival mode. And to go into that a little bit more deeply, we need to witness that your nervous system, which is a very ancient human technology that is evolving a little bit slower than our emotional and mental capabilities and spiritual capabilities especially, that our nervous systems are very attuned to threat. And your particular nervous system has developed a very strong programming of what it means to feel threat. And yes, of course, if there's physical violence in a relationship, that is a legitimate threat to your safety and one that you need to respond to immediately. But for many of us here, it's more an emotional threat to safety. It's more a sense that someone out there has the ability to impact so fully on our emotional well-being within us. Now we look consistently for repetition of that experience in reality. Our nervous system is attuned to us seeking, where is the pattern of survival going to play out? And as we do that, we develop a very predictable set of thought forms, behaviors, and emotions connected to that survival pattern. Now, unfortunately, humans have a very strong underpinning pattern or mechanism, I'd say, that supports this pattern, and that is addiction. And this is a deeper element to why and how we maintain the same emotions, thought forms, and behaviors in relationship. On a very unconscious level, we're all very much addicted to repeating these patterns. We all spend a lot of time investing in behaviors that are very known and similar, that get similar feedback from our other person, that cause us to have very similar emotional patterns, that cause us to think very similar things. Now, these emotional, behavioral, thought form addictions are really strong and really deeply patterned in our nervous system for our survival. But the majority of them, on deeper exploration, are based on something I call the illusion, which is we've formulated a program to try to keep us safe, while simultaneously knowing exactly what we need to do to get our emotional addiction from that person that we're in relationship with. So I want you to consider for a moment, how predictable are your thoughts and your behaviors and your emotions in those relationships that are the most painful? How familiar does it feel? How often do you get into the same rhythm of confrontation or overwhelm or stress with that person? So these deeper levels of understanding about relationship are critical for us to begin to reclaim our identity within them and to stop being unconscious. Because the addiction is merely a pathway for our nervous system to experience the known in the relationship. So to get into a deeper sense of knowing that this is a predictable outcome, that I will get the predictable hormonal, neural, limbic system, behavioral responses from responding to this person in the same way. And it's difficult sometimes to witness our involvement in it, because it's very easy for us to be in a state of judgment. That person out there is pulling the puppet strings. They're the one that's controlling me and causing me to feel this way. And that's where we go into this deeper aspect of feeling like a victim to a perpetrator, someone out there that does some things that cause us some reaction that mean that we have to respond in a predictable way to survive that pattern. So when we kind of see that as a foundation, we want to really explore that there's going to be patterns of relating that are unconscious for you, that keep these relationships in loops. But on a deeper level, there's going to be some thought forms or judgments you might have of that person that keep that person very fixed in your reality. So I'm sure if I asked any of you, you could tell me straight away a list of at least 10 things about that person that's difficult in your life. Who they are, what they do, how they're wrong, what characteristics they have. And the really curious thing is, when you go a bit deeper into that space, is that humans are holographic. We are actually shifting and changing in relationship to whoever is looking at us. So that particular person that you think is those things, it's very likely that their colleague at work, their mother, their sibling, their team player will not have the same list that you have. It's very possible that person is playing a very important role for you in that you get to fix their identity through your judgment. And when you fix their identity through your judgment, you have this amazing ability to fix your identity too. Because you know that if you see them in that way, you have full permission to show up in the ways that feel most addictive for you. So if that person is a big problem in your life and you see them always, judging them always as being this thing that is really difficult for you, you're fixing them. And as you fix that reality, your reality internally gets fixed. You get a predictable series of responses and ways of being around that person. And the design of this on a reality level is that it's the known. It feels safe on an unconscious level because it's the known pattern. You have to see this person as having these characteristics in your experience so you can fix them as that set identity, so you can then respond with your set identity in the relationship. It's like you're getting the material you need to keep your identity fixed in this design. So if you think about how you show up with that particular person, it will be very predictable, really predictable. You'll know exactly what to do when they trigger you. You'll know their reactions to things you say. And you'll expect to see that of them. And you'll expect to see them interact with you in certain ways. And some of you may argue, well, that's just who they are. That's their problem. But what I want to really challenge you in is that you're witnessing that is a holographic experience of you actually knowing that within yourself. So to give you a more personal application of this, I had seen how over time my relationship to my family members has shifted. Because from my unloved wound, I used to see that my family didn't have time for me. They didn't create any really positive experiences to spend with me. I was isolated. I was alone. They would call each other. They wouldn't call me. And I'd tell this story in my mind to myself. And then I'd look for evidence that it was true. I would notice if they'd been talking or something had been planned and I wasn't involved. And I began to really watch my pattern of self-exclusion. And I began to witness how I wanted to see them fixed in that reality, that I wanted to see them leaving me out because it fed a very predictable pathway in my body that if they left me out, I got to experience my emotional addiction of not being loved, not being included, not being enough to be invited. And that would stir a very predictable pathway of responses. And as it evolved and I began to witness this more clearly, I witnessed if I stopped placing my attention on how they were showing up and really focused in on what I was doing internally to anchor that fixed behavior in, I began to see how distant I was. I began to witness that I wouldn't initiate anything with my family out of fear of being rejected. So I went down a pathway of exploring what role do I play in fixing the relationship with these people that I love. And after the self-exploration of that, I began to witness, actually, I'm supporting this reality. And as I began to see that, I began to witness how known and predictable it was, to the point where I went, you know what? It's time to challenge this space, to challenge my nervous system, to step outside of the known, to try new ways of relating. And as I anchored it in myself, I was able to anchor it in the relationship with those around me. And subsequently, I realized I wasn't excluded. I was creating separation in the relationship for me to perpetuate an addiction. So your invitation is to really witness, what role do you play? How are you perpetuating the judgment of those people in your life that give you permission to show up in these ways? And once you experience that, it's then an opportunity to move into a deeper sense of awareness and consciousness that holds the ability to really change all your relationships. So let's go a little bit deeper now for a moment to this sense that these relationships provide us with the ability to be the victim in them, to be the one that is suffering in response to this person. And what I've really come to see is that I use these words victim, perpetrator because they hold weight, but they're accessible. We understand the dynamics of this. But as I've gone more deeply into my journey, exploring relationships and supporting others in their relationships, I've begun to see the lines of victim and perpetrator very much blurred. And I think it's a very important exercise for us to witness how the blurring of the victim-perpetrator lines creates more liberation in these relationships. So I'm going to invite you to come and join me right now on a little exercise to just witness, how do you show up in predictable ways in these relationships? And what are those roles that get taken on to create separation, and how we can maybe soften them a little bit? Before we do so, I just want to acknowledge that the core of this work is going to be that you will have a very large stored pain experience within your body. And pain is the place where we create the foundation for these separation experiences. And the pain causes us to have huge levels of fear in a relationship. So we've experienced a pain, something's hurt us, and from a survival mechanism, we've developed a whole way of viewing that pain and understanding that pain. When I'm embedded in that is a huge amount of fear. Coming into connection with that person that causes you pain is going to simultaneously hold huge amounts of fear for you. So that fear that is vibrating there just under the surface, the fear of getting close to that person because they might hurt you again, is really the deepest piece in the separation. The true hurt, the true pain is within your own being. It's within your experience of that relationship. And the thing that you feel the most pain about might not be as painful for another. So, for example, going back to my family situation, for my brother who loves to do his own thing, it's kind of a relief that the family doesn't call him for family outings. So whatever's painful for you is going to be unique to your set of programming of separation. So I just want you to witness that. But the pain is very real. There's nothing untrue about that. It's real. The pain is alive and real. It's just that the fear and the stories we tell around the pain that perpetuate it, that keep it going beyond the actual point of pain, is where we really feed into this loop. So if you think of when you've been in pain, when you've fully felt that pain, whatever it is, has been completed, in that moment if you fully felt it. The fear is what arises in the recollection of that pain. The fear is then the ramification of wanting to avoid that pain in the future, our survival mechanism. So we fear things which keep us separate from them so we don't have to keep feeling the pain. So if you're feeling pain in this relationship, I want you to honor that pain is real. It's within you and it's real and it still needs to be felt. It's still the portal back to your own connection. But the stories we tell about the pain, the illusions or the programs or the judgments we hold, they're where we need to really shake things up. Because if we keep that fear going, if we keep that illusion alive, we basically project the same reality, the same loop onto all relationships. We draw whatever has happened in the past and we literally leapfrog it into a projection of what's going to happen in the future. And we miss the moments of connection and presence in the now because we're in fear of feeling more pain. So we want to collapse in that program. We want to stop the projection that the fear that we've created here is going to lead to the pain. Because unconsciously what will happen is that you will draw that pain to you in your reality. You're wanting to witness it. You're wanting to see it happening. So you draw it to you and then you re-experience it and it's unconscious. And you think, oh my goodness, I did everything to try to avoid this pain in this relationship again, but it's happened again. And that sense of betrayal or abandonment or loss or a sense of being wronged in some way keeps projecting through your reality. So we want to witness the pain is real, but the stories that we've told to keep that pain alive and to keep projecting it out of fear in our future is part of the illusion of separation. So what I want to explore now is honoring that the pain is real. I want to go a little bit into the design of how you've seen someone as the perpetrator. Now, this is more an emotional level. I'm not touching on the physical level here. As I've said, those physical experiences we need to deal with slightly differently. But these are more the emotional hurts, the emotional pain. So when you witness what we would call the perpetrator, the one that causes you the pain, can you think for a moment, and you may like to jot down, what are some of the characteristics of that person that really impact you, that really cause you to feel very triggered? And what I want you to look at is those particular patterns that you have witnessed outside of you as being very painful for you. I want you to take a moment and internalize and question, have I adopted any of those characteristics of the perpetrator to survive? So in my scenario, when I went a little bit deeper, I realized that I was very frequently in a state of exclusion of my family because of the fear I got around rejection. So I would see them as rejecting me or excluding me. But when I actually shifted and turned the mirror on myself, I saw that I was actually the one that was excluding. And it was painful to witness. And this can go across so many levels. So I work with lots of different people that really tune into that particular behaviors that their person does. On reflection, are things that they actually have adopted within themselves. And when we begin to see this, we begin to know that actually these are very strong survival mechanisms. We have adopted the aspects of the perpetrator to survive. So we've actually taken in and managed to alchemize in ourselves the thing that hurt us most. And we then actually act out those ways of being with other people. So I want to suggest that you're going to develop 2 strategies of surviving. One is probably that you're going to have some form of attack mode. So some kind of moving forward to create a wave of interaction. So whether it being argumentative, whether it being controlling, whether it being defensive, whether it being angry, whatever it is, you're going to have a method that helps you feel safe against the attack. And on the flip of that, you're going to have a method that causes you to withdraw. You're going to have a way that to survive, you're going to feign. You're going to come back into yourself. You're going to be distant. You're going to be isolating. You're going to be non-contactable. You're going to be blocking. And there's 2 aspects of this that you're going to use in your own survival. But at the very core of this, what's really important to witness is that there's going to be other humans in your life where you're actually the perpetrator, where you actually use these tactics to survive in those relationships. And as you flip that mirror and you witness the roles you've had to take on to survive, you can also see simultaneously that the person that you feel is attacking you has had to take on those roles to survive also. And we're all in survival mechanisms in our most painful relationships. We're all projecting parts of us that are very much wired in our nervous system, wired in our emotional addictions, wired in our sense of behaving, thinking, being, that create this separation through our disconnect, our unconscious way of being. So in this fractal, in this way that we take on these aspects of the person that hurts us most, we want to actually explore more deeply what that truly means. And as we begin to go into this space, there's going to be a secondary mechanism that's going to come up for the majority of us, is that we won't really truly want to acknowledge and own those parts of us because they're going to feel very painful. And B, secondary mechanisms of shame and guilt and self-blame are going to arise. So this is another part of our programming that keeps us separate, but this time it's getting flipped. And the separation we're experiencing now is within the truth of ourselves. It's not until you can fully own your commitment, experience, offering to the relationship, then you're going to actually be able to get real change in the relationship. It's not until you actually look within and see how these characteristics are embedded in your survival system that you're going to be able to get a shift in the holographic reality for others to be able to meet you and show up in a different way. So when we feel that aspect of shame or self-blame or guilt, it's another level of creating ourselves as the victim, but to ourselves. So we become the perpetrator and victim within ourselves. We judge ourselves. We witness ourselves. We dishonor ourselves. We betray ourselves. We talk to ourselves as if we've done something wrong. And that whole narrative that really speaks to this space of feeling some level of shame or blame or problem there means that we actually disconnect and we can't fully touch that space. We can't fully honor how we've had to survive in the relationship. And when we create ourselves as a victim that we've shamed, that we shame ourselves in that space or blame ourselves in that space, then we can't close the gap. We can't close the gap of separation that we create within ourselves. And so then the cycle continues. So what I want you to really begin to explore in every relationship is, what characteristics of this very painful relationship have you taken on for yourself to survive? How do those characteristics then impact on others? And what level of masking, or I suppose avoidance, do you have to put in place so you don't see them in yourself? Because it's when we crack in there that we begin to develop the primary relationship that we're looking for. The primary relationship is the one that means that we will not be acting out of alignment for ourselves. And in my experience, the only work I believe I have to do, and that we do in our evolution, is holding up a consistent mirror to how we are showing up in relationship. And then going through those layers of awareness about how are we holding ourselves in separation, and how is that going to be cracked open through consciousness so we can create these higher levels of connection and love. So in that relationship with self, there's a couple of aspects that I want to touch on briefly, because these two things come up very often in the healing environment. And it's really important that we kind of develop a new paradigm of really looking at these. One of them is around the concept of forgiveness. So I hear of a lot of people that try to create a sense of completion in a relationship by forgiving that person and pushing them to the unconscious parts of reality for them. I get this as a survival mechanism. It makes sense that if I forgive, I don't have to deal with that showing up in my reality anymore. It's like I've boxed it up, I've put it in the corner, I'm good. I'm going to move on with my life. But what actually happens on a very unconscious level is that energy that's unprocessed and stored and stuck in that sense of I've had to forgive that person actually permeates unconsciously a lot of other relationships. So even though you've forgiven that person and put them away, the patterning of that relationship is still going to be running on a loop unconsciously in your reality. So when we begin to do this inner work and we begin to remove this relationship of being victim perpetrator and come into a sense of inner connection of, I suppose, more compassion and consciousness, we begin to witness that instead of that thing being something we had to forgive, we actually have to have full expression that was not okay. That was not okay for you to experience that. And when you own that experience to its fullness and don't deny the ability for that experience to transform you, you then get to move to a new state. When you're in forgiveness, you're still participating in a level of self-betrayal because you've gone, oh, I'll just make that okay and put that over there. When the truth is, it wasn't okay. It was never going to be okay. And you're going to be the one that's going to find the expression of that through yourself. What that does is it shifts reality. It signposts to reality that actually, no, that was not okay for me. And it was deeply painful. And I'm going to feel the extent of that pain as the portal of reconnection to myself. But I'm not going to have to forgive that to make it okay for me. I'm going to reverse the energy and bring all of that energy back into me and actually say, no, that wasn't okay. It happened, it's over, but it was never okay. And what we're building there is the foundation of something that I call inner boundaries, which is the second space to explore. Inner boundaries, I suppose, in direct difference to what we get taught about boundaries externally. There's a lot of talk in sort of different circles around how if you set up a boundary, you're going to be good and that person's going to not impact you on the same levels and it's going to create a difference in your life. But when that boundary actually fails, the ability for you to rectify that boundary, reinforce that boundary, say that boundary in a different way becomes very muddled. And the truth is we don't actually get a real difference in the relationship when we try to put these external boundaries on telling people to not do things. And it's sort of this backhanded way of creating this level of separation in the experience where you're saying, don't cross this line. And everyone's like, well, I'm going to cross whatever line I want on a very unconscious level because they still want to be engaged in the wound bond that you guys have. The importance around boundaries is that it's not about an external expression. It's about bringing all that energy back in and reflecting inward where your internal boundary lies. And I like to do this really often, and especially when we're developing a new sense of identity beyond the fixed identity of being a victim to someone external. It's really about how you are going to show up and operate within the relationship. So instead of being at the mercy of someone else's reactions, we're actually developing a very strong foundation of unconditional trust that we are actually going to take care of ourselves. And this means initiating new behaviors, new thought forms, and new emotional responses for ourselves. In truth, we have complete freedom to show up spontaneously in a relationship in a completely different way. But when we're locking ourselves into this fixed state that they're the perpetrator, I'm the victim, the ability for us to be sovereign in that relationship becomes very minimal. We have to create the sovereignty internally in ourselves. So an inner boundary is going to look like you in deep honoring of what you need to do to create a sense of internal safety. This illusion that you can create external safety in the relationship is not real. No one outside of you is going to make it okay for you. And that's reflected in this boundary crossing experience that we think we have to go and read another book about to learn more about boundaries. Boundaries don't exist between people. It's an illusion along with the separation. But we commit to it and then it fails and then we beat ourselves up or we go into another state of challenge with that person. So what I want you to do is flip that relationship of boundaries and actually bring it deeply into yourself. Where will I no longer betray myself? Where will I no longer abandon myself? Where will I actually choose consciously how to move in that space that aligns to me? And I have a beautiful example of that, which is with my partner, that when we began our relationship, I said very clearly that my inner boundary is that if you want to be in relationship with me, then it's a committed relationship. If you want to be with someone else, you have full choice to do that. But the minute you're with someone else, you're no longer with me because that's my inner boundary. I will not be with a man who's with another woman. That's my inner boundary. So you're free to go do that, but that's not aligned to my inner boundaries. And what I created in that relationship then was this acknowledgement that I am not going to betray or abandon myself. And in the alignment of that, that person will either step in and want to align to your inner boundary, although they'll not be capable of that and they'll move out of your experience. And that's part of evolution. And it's not fixed, it's fluid. He did commit. The end of that story was that he went, yes, I want to be with you. And all through my relationships, in my work relationships, my family, every relationship, I'm checking in to honor myself first and then allowing that to be a fluid relationship with the person I'm with. Our consciousness then gets to meet each other. And I would expect that any human I'm in relationship with gets to express their values and their boundaries within themselves so I can honor them. And in doing that, we're creating these beautiful conscious relationships. And that's my passion in this space, in this ability to understand how we're betraying and abandoning ourselves and creating the victim within the relationship space. It's about the reclamation, owning the parts of ourselves that have been in these modes of separation and then recreating what is the foundation of this expression that we want to experience. Because our relationships are critical. They're mirrors back to ourselves. And if something's misaligned, we're going to feel it on the deepest levels internally. And that's why it's so painful. Because anything that's happening out there is actually happening within you. It's the pain within you because it's a relationship with yourself that's being reflected to you. So exploring that as a way forward is going to be how I believe we can really reorientate ourselves in relationship and reconnect to the truth of ourselves. So that's my little piece of chatting on and on. I chatted a lot. So you can re-listen to that if I chatted too much. But I just want to say thank you all for coming tonight. I hope you received something that's going to align you to greater levels of connection. I'm grateful for you all, and I really look forward to sharing more time with you all. Stay in touch. Let me know if anything comes out of this experience or you have a new awareness. I love to hear from everybody. It means so much to me to be able to go on this journey with you all. So please, I'm here. Reach out and stay in touch. But much love to you all. Bye for now. It's been an absolute pleasure to spend this time with you. And to say thank you, I'd like to share with you 3 beautiful meditations to explore your core wounding and a collection of masterclasses. You'll find these in your show notes. And if you feel the synergy to this path, know that it is available to you also.